Enemy power-up detected.
This is Incoming Missile, a Mechwarrior Online podcast. Well, competitive Mechwarrior Online keeps marching forward, and today we are shifting the incoming missile reticle to the MWO Summer Grand Prix. 07 Mechwarriors, it's Cousins Indigo here again, and in this episode we're giving you an introduction to the next competitive MWO tournament. Now, we've had the Martial Olympiad Reborn and the Innersphere Coalition so far, and as we build towards the World Champs this year, we are now looking at another 6v6 tournament brought to us by the awesome guys at 228th IBR. Now, if you don't know who 228th are, you really haven't been paying attention to unit tags in the drop screen, but they are one of the biggest and most competitive units on the scene, and they have put their heads together to bring us the Summer Grand Prix tournament that they have been cooking up for a little while now. Now, to give us the details about the tournament, I talked with OblivionSK, who is a top competitive pilot and a member of 228th Blackwatch, their top team. They are currently, of course, one of the top 4 teams in the game. Now, it gives us the lowdown on the format of the tournament, some of the unique rules and innovations that they are looking to trial, what metas and strats we might see in the tournament given those things, and of course he talks about the place that the Grand Prix has in the wider competitive MWO League happening. Really did enjoy the conversation. It was really great to hear the amount of thought and consideration that 228 have put into the tournament. It was pretty clear from Oblivion's description that they really want to help expand and improve the competitive scene by trying out some kind of cool, innovative approaches to comp play. In particular, trying to draw in those teams that aren't at that kind of higher skill level. As we know, comp play has to be not only fun to play, but it does need to be really great to watch as well. And I think that once you listen to what Oblivion has to say, you'll see that those are the things that are at the front of their decision-making process, which is really awesome stuff and great from such an influential unit within the community. So make sure you get involved in the tournament. All the relevant links will be in the show notes below, but look, it's pretty simple. Head to the MWO Comp Discord if you haven't already, and follow the appropriate links. Make sure that if you can't jump in and participate to shoot some mechs, that you do tune into all the action via the 228 streamers that will be casting it, the likes of Pickle, Defunct, and those guys. As always, thank you to our incoming missile patrons, Dan N, Freerider AU, Jondoeiowa, MWO Comp, Jacob Sawyer, Shaky Snake, Brios, Chilgapsan Waterdeer, Knight of the Day, Nikoro Doomguard, and to our newest patron, Robin M. Your support, as always, is greatly appreciated. And if you did want to support us in more tangible ways like these amazing Mechwarriors do, you can become a patron for as little as $2 per month. So look for Incoming Missile Podcast on Patreon, where you might even come along to join us for an episode like Nick did recently. Right, let's get into it.
Shutdown sequence overridden.
Right, the competitive MWO scene keeps marching on, and on the back of the Martial Olympiad Reborn and the Innersphere Coalition, we move now to the MWO Summer Grand Prix, who is hosted by our friends and MWO stalwarts, 228th IBR. Now, in the episode today, we are going to preview that tournament, and I am joined by tournament organizer OblivionSK. How's it going, man? Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Right, let's get down to business. Let's talk the Summer Grand Prix, and let's kick off with a talk, I guess, about the format of the tournament. Can you take us through the structure and, I guess, some of the key rules?
Yes, so the tournament's basically 1 week. I mean, it's technically 2 weeks, but most people will just be playing in the first week. It's 2 nights, Friday night, Saturday night. It's going to be Swiss pairings. Everyone's going to play everybody. We're going to go through, and after that, cut to top 3 teams, most likely, and then go to double elimination the following weekend.
So effectively, you have a point, a cut, like you might in golf or something like that, that you've got to qualify to a certain position, and then you've got, I guess, a finals series. Is that the best way to describe it?
Yeah. Basically, every win in the Swiss pairings will give you a point, and then the people with the top 3 points are going to be moved on to the finals.
Awesome. And using the Swiss system, that often means that teams need to be seeded to go in to see who they match up against. Are you guys going to do a seeding process like MOR and IEC did?
We talked about it quite a bit, actually. What we determined was we're going to go based off of registration. So right now, I believe there's only about 5 teams signed up, but most tournaments have a lot of their signups happen right before the tournament starts. So if we get an explosion of people and there's a bunch of teams, we'll seed them and we'll try to go through pairings. But if we have a relatively light turnout, then we'll probably just randomly pair people.
Nice. And of course, with Swiss, hopefully what it means is that you will tend to get teams matching up against other teams. So maybe the rankings at the start don't matter too much.
Yeah.
So let's say I am signed up and I'm ready to play. What should I expect from the Summer Grand Prix in regards to team compositions and the game that I'll actually be playing?
So a lot of team composition here is going to be a little more generalized than your average tournament. We decided to go with the bucket system for the maps. So right before the match is actually launched, both teams are green, they're confirmed, ready to go. The judge will randomly select a map out of the pool for that particular drop. So I believe drop 1 is Mining Collective, Canyon Network, and one other map.
Viridian Bog?
Viridian Bog, I believe, yeah. And so that they'll have no idea going in. You have to design a deck that's going to perform well on all 3. And we tried to pick maps that are almost like each other. Canyon Network, a lot of ups and downs. You need a good amount of jump jets, some mobility. Same can be said for Mining Collective, although not quite to the same extent. And while mobility is very helpful on Viridian Bog, it's not absolutely essential to victory. So your deck can be tweaked a little bit from map to map, but there's always a probability that if you bring a map teched to one specific function, that you could just get a map that you don't do well on.
I mean, that's a really key difference that you're going to put together a drop deck. Really, that's trying to suit a style of map. And as you say, you've kind of grouped the maps there so that they are relatively similar in the type of deck that you might take. I mean, it's really cool. That's really different, I guess, from what we have seen so far. And it's cool because this will probably be the third different approach to map selection that we've seen. If we can just jump ahead to something that we were going to talk. How do you guys think that this type of map selection process will make a difference? What are you guys hoping to get out of just presenting one of 3 different maps and making it a little bit random?
So I think a big thing we're going to get out of this is that there's going to be a mild amount of consistency across all the different pairings. So round 1, you're going to see a lot of similar drop decks from each team, even though they end up playing on different maps. And while there's a mild amount of consistency, it also makes it really fun and entertaining to watch and cast. I felt like that's something that we haven't gotten out of some tournaments in the distant past. ISC and Moriat have been really fun to watch, actually. But sometimes I've found some casts a lot of the same. Worlds last year, it got to a point where you'd see like Annihilator, Heavy Mech, Hunchback, these set of mediums, Javelin, just bashing each other in the face over and over again. And this is actually where we talked about this tournament at first. We thought, we were at Worlds and we're like, what do you think they could change going from this year's Worlds to next year's Worlds? What's the most radical idea they could have that still kept it fun? And we started spitballing and throwing them into a Google Doc, and eventually we got to where we are now.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, it's firstly that you guys are going through that thought process to say, how can we improve the spectacle of comp? And of course that you're thinking that framed in the sense of worlds, from one worlds to another. And you're exactly right. The spectacle of comp, whilst you want competitive to be good for the participants and the teams, the spectacle of comp is a really, really important element because, of course, the better it is to watch and the more support you have for comp, then obviously the more comps you're going to get and the healthier the scene. So this is really interesting to say that you've got a group of maps, and they're probably gonna have similar styles, but the terrain's going to be slightly different. The approach might be slightly different from canyon to mining. Obviously with, and we'll talk a little bit more about format, but for drops 1 and 2, am I right in saying that those would be domination? So say for
Yes.
canyon and, if we're going to drop 2 where it's Rubelite, Tourmaline and Grim, they're domination as well. So do you think we're going to see a great variety of drop decks? Is it going to be the maps that dictate the decks, or is it going to be the mode is going to be more influential?
Game mode and map both have a lot of influence when we form drop decks, but it's not all domination. You do have a drop of conquest at the end. Yeah, that's a bit of a tiebreaker almost, which is what it'll be in most cases. But yeah, you're right. It is mostly domination. But the variety of maps and the randomness of the maps and the extra little flavor rules we have in there to edit deck construction, I think will really have a big impact. I think we will see quite a bit of variety versus some past tournaments.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I like that you guys have added some of those things in there to help encourage, some diversity and for people to take some different ideas in to try and be successful. So let's push on, I guess, with that format stuff we've dropped. We know that the map is probably going to be one of 3, and that is going to be random. The drop itself, though, it is 6v6, like in a sphere, but the tonnage is different. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, it's going to be 360 tons, a bit higher. We talked a lot about what we wanted average tonnage to be per player, and we ended up landing on 60. We felt that when the tonnage is a bit lower, sometimes you see drop decks begin to gravitate around a lot of medium mechs right now in the meta, mostly just because heavy mechs are in such an awkward place that it's really hard to feel like, hey, this heavy mech is definitely better than this medium mech. Like, it's just with a combination of how the quirks worked out and ghost heat and stuff, it's a little difficult to put definitely more firepower onto a heavy mech, enough extra firepower to justify playing it over a medium.
Yeah, look, I agree, and I think that's exacerbated by the clan and IS difference. One of the things I think we saw from ISC was that in a sphere, heavies struggle a little bit as you go up and over 60 tons compared to clan heavies, IS do tend to kind of own anything 40 or 45 tons and below, but from there on clan really starts to take over from 60 upwards. So when you're getting that mix of medium or heavy and what do I take, if the tonnage limit is too low, we might see clans just dominating, clans becoming the meta to take because it becomes the best kind of tonnage calculation. I mean, was there something in mind that you settled on, or was there a drop deck or that you had in your head, or was there anything that drove it beyond the 360? Because we're talking about an average now of 60 mechs per ton as opposed to the kind of 50 to 55 that we had with the Innisphere Coalition's tonnage limit. How do you expect the drop decks to pan out? Was there a mix in mind, particularly if you think about, say, chassis limits or some of the other constrictions?
So some of the key deck construction things that our tournament's going to feature is we're allowing hero mechs, we're allowing reward mechs that weren't cash only. Basically anything that you can acquire in Mechwarrior Online without directly exchanging it for US dollars, or sorry, any kind of currency, I guess. For me it would be US dollars, is available for use in the tournament. We discussed it, and we feel like if someone played this game long enough, a lot of these hero mechs that are playable aren't actually that far out of reach. A couple thousand MC, I mean, they do events like, every other weekend now? With reward mechs, MC rewards. Heck, at World Championships last year, I got 3,000 and 1,000 MC codes just for winning the Solaris stuff that they had set up at the convention. And I got like 25,000 MC because I did it a bunch of times. And so we didn't think that allowing hero mechs was super restrictive. And they add a lot of variety to play. Like if you look at the 4-4, the quick draw, that thing is just nuts compared to the other quick draws with those MRMs. It just sprays and prays, and that's not really something a lot of other mechs do.
Yeah. And the good thing about that is that they can be good without being meta. And I think it's hard to look at a hero mech that is meta and stands that far above other mechs. I mean, even if we think about, say, the Mad Cat, the Death Strike is a very, very good mech, but, the Mad Cat B is probably even more meta, and, if you had a choice between the two.
Oh yeah, the Death Strike is nothing compared to the 2CB.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's fantastic, and it's almost a credit, I guess, to PGI that those, say, MC-only mechs are accessible now because of potentially the generosity in the event. So I think that's great, and the Heroes is a great one. Anything else, I guess, unique about that tonnage or the 6v6 that you'd want to mention? Obviously, we've talked about the fact there's domination, but what are some other key things?
Another thing I think is going to be really key is that this tournament allows duplicates, but at the penalty of removing 10 tons from that drop deck while it has a duplicate in it.
That's awesome. So run that through for me. I mean, how is that going to be influential? How might you see that playing out?
The thought process was here was that in More 8, I distinctly remember we took some kind of DACA deck that featured Bushwhackers, some other things, but it also had a Mad Cat 2CB and a Blood Asp as its main DPS. And we looked at the 2CB and the Blood Asp, and we're like, wow, this Blood Asp is 5 tons heavier, but literally worse than the Mad Cat in every way, except a couple of points of armor on each component. Like, this Mad Cat just way outperforms it for 5 tons. And so we thought, okay, so 5 tons doesn't really make that significant of a difference. Does 10 tons make that significant? Does 15? And at first we thought about having the tonnage penalty increase as you added more duplicates, so it went like 10, 25, up like that. That ended up being too severe, so we just cut it to 10, and we decided that 10 was severe enough a penalty. You would have to sit down and have a conversation with yourself, like, okay, the Mad Cat's definitely better. Do I want to spend 5 more tons to bring a Blood Asp, or do I want to spend 10 more tons to retain the mobility of the Mad Cat?
That's awesome. And to run that as an example, if I was to take 2 Mad Cats and 2 IV4s, I'm going to suffer a 20-ton penalty?
Correct. So at the most you could have is a 30-ton penalty then at that point, because you'd have 6 max per deck, 3 duplicates.
I love what you've done here in that adding these elements in that almost add to the mech math. The strategizing and that time that you have to spend in the mech lab is even more now where you're adding in these variations. Do you think that that's going to be something that's embraced, or do you think that people are just going to kind of quickly settle on an approach and go with that?
That's something that we're not 100% sure on. We talked about it quite a bit, and some people are like, 10 tons? I'm never taking a duplicate. Get duplicates away from me. This is a singleton tournament. And we've had other people who are like, if I bring 2 of this, 2 of this, and 2 of this, 330 tons is the tonnage limit. Don't tell me 360, it's 330. So I think it's something that's going to pan out through the tournament. As you see games play, I think teams will develop things that they like more than others. Personally, I think that 1 duplicate is going to be the way to go. For example, ATMs. Mostly only playable on medium mechs, and distinctly only playable on clan medium mechs. And the ones that do it the best are the Huntsman and the Vapor Eagle. Way below that you have the Hunchback. The Hunchback isn't quite maneuverable enough to jump, pivot, twist, snap in a way that you need an ATM mech to do. So if you look at it and you're like, okay, I want to bring 3 or 4 ATM mechs, do I want to make my deck way worse and bring a Hunchback? Or do I want to sacrifice like 10, maybe 20 tons and bring double Huntsman and 1 or 2 Vapor Eagles and retain the really, really nice mobility that you get out of playing ATM mechs? And I think 1 or 2 duplicates will be the way to go.
Nice. And it will be really interesting to see how that does play out, to see whether people take the mech math that far to try and get the advantage with the better mechs. Do you think that there is a risk that it will encourage people to default to what would be more quote-unquote meta mechs? Might we see the same type of drop decks, including the same type of mechs?
Yeah, I think in other tournaments, defaulting to meta mechs it hasn't really been a thing you've thought about. It's just a thing that has happened or hasn't. Like, you either bring a crap ton of meta, or you bring these couple of flavor mechs that happen to be good for that one particular competitive meta. that aren't really actually competitive, air quotes, competitive mechs. But I think that here we're gonna, the fact that I'm like debating with myself mentally, I think shows that like I think this tournament is going to leave a lot of room for interpretation of that. I think it's going to change game by game. As for will it be all metamechs, I think it brings the non-metamechs closer to the metamechs, because bringing non-metamechs actually does have a reward now. You can bring duplicate metamechs, or you can have more tonnage and bring beefier non-metamechs, which will then put more armor on the battlefield, more tankiness, and these slightly worse mechs will have more armor and more advantage to be able to press against these metamechs and actually have more of a competitive edge against them. So I think we could see non-metamechs being closer to metamechs than we have in previous tournaments.
I mean, that's a fantastic point. You would almost see just how meta, in air quotes, a mech is if you're willing to give up the tonnage. So if you were to take two Mad Cats versus a Mad Cat and a Blood Asp, do we see that Mad Caps are meta enough that they just run over the Mad Cat and the Blood Asp? So yeah, it just throws another kind of really fascinating element to it, and hopefully kind of all the mech nerds out there that, like to put strategies together and like to construct drop decks, the machine and the wheels are turning already for them as they think about how they could construct something within that 360 ton limit.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that's one of the most entertaining things about Mechwarrior Online, is being able to debate about these decks and put them together before you go. If you look at something else with deck construction, like a card game, if you go into like a Hearthstone tournament or something and you change 3-4 cards from the default deck, people are like, what is this idiot doing? 2% of his deck is different than the best one? What an idiot. I can't believe he's doing that. Blasphemy.
Yeah, really good point, and it will certainly be something that we'll watch for in the tournament and look forward to how it's going. So let's sum up a couple of those key points there. Obviously, the tournament structure, as you said, does effectively have a final series. It'll play out over 2 weekends, and it will be Swiss pairing. It is 6v6, and the board is open across the type of mechs that you can take within that 360 tonnage limit. There are those interesting rules around duplicates, but of course you can take heroes and those things that are purchasable by in-game currency, not the straight dollar purchase, but in-game currency. Anything that can be brought by MC or C-bills is fair game. We mentioned 360 is that tonnage limit to work within, and of course it is best of 3, with the first 2 drops being domination, the tiebreaker being conquest, and for each drop there is a one of 3 maps that you could be on, so you don't actually get to prep for an exact map ahead of time. Does that cover the basic details? Was there anything else to add into there?
I think that is a pretty good summary, yeah.
Awesome. And as we can see, there's some really interesting similarities in that to other tournaments that we've seen. For example, the 6v6 is very similar to Innisphere, but the tonnage limit puts it up a little bit. And of course, we start to see hero mechs and some of those other ones that we may not have seen in the tournaments thus far. And of course, we now go back to seeing domination like we saw in MOR, and we saw some just crazy all-in brawls and some really quick games in domination. So looking forward to that. So you have already mentioned around the format some noteworthy changes or exceptions, and Oblivion, what I like the most is that you've put those in perspective to say this is why we're doing it and this is what we're trying to encourage. Now there is a couple of other ones that I think that we could talk about, and the first one that I wanted to ask you about was the fact that you have excluded players from the top 4 comp teams from tournament play. So if you are a member of EMP, Eon Synergy, 228 Black Watch, or JGX/Black Omen, you're not going to be able to compete. Can you talk to me a little bit about why you guys have opted for that rule? Because you're excluding yourself, of course, as a top comp player.
Yeah, we have excluded ourselves, yeah, and we have excluded a couple of other teams, and this is probably the major talking point of the tournament. People are either completely dumbfounded, or they hate it, or they love it. There is no in between. We talked a lot about this, a lot about this, and originally the idea behind this tournament was we were at MechCon. We were all probably couple beers too many deep, and we were all like, yeah, we're totally going to do this tournament in like a week after we get home, and we're going to be like, no, the top 12 teams are out of here. Let's give all these other teams a chance to actually win something, man. And then we sobered up and got home, and we're like, oh my god, there's so much work to put a tournament together. Okay, hang on, we're delaying it a little bit. And we got so far away from when MechCon was that we were like, okay, at this point we can't say we're excluding these top 12 teams because some of these teams don't exist anymore. Or some of these teams aren't like the top teams ever now. Some of them have been surpassed, or some of them have lost a bunch of people. 228 Swamp Foxes, for example, is completely retired. It doesn't exist anymore. They're gone. But they were a top 12 team, so like to put in rules that we were excluding a team that no one is part of just felt a little silly. So we asked ourselves, who are the top teams right now? Okay, do we want them in our tournament? What will probably happen? And what we saw was a lot of these quick, fast, gritty weekend tournaments are usually dominated by one or a couple of these teams. And that's fine. That's competitive Mechwarrior. But what we really wanted was we wanted to give the teams that participated in Worlds but didn't make it to somewhere where they got piles of MC or mech packs or a decal with their team name, which was really cool. But we wanted to give them an opportunity to have that moment. We wanted to have them go home with the prize. We wanted teams that worked really, really, really hard but never get recognition for it, or rarely get recognition for it, to be able to go into something, win the whole thing, and go home with the trophy and a fat chunk of prizes. We thought that it was really unfair that a lot of these teams work just as hard, if not harder, than we did. But just because they weren't us, just because they didn't have our win-loss ratio, nobody told them good job for putting in even more work than us. And so we wanted to give these teams that opportunity. It also makes for really, really good casting. It's going to be casted by us. It's almost entirely 228. It's going to see Nita Pickle, Defunct, maybe even Panic Button, streaming all of this. And to make it as entertaining as possible and as easy as possible for them to have these moments where they're on the edge of their seat screaming into the microphone like, oh my god, I can't believe this is happening. You need teams that aren't afraid to have like upsets, like teams people haven't seen before going in there and like smacking down these other teams in a way that people haven't seen before. That's really what is fun to watch, is underdogs, people you don't get to see all the time.
Yeah, I mean, the unpredictable certainly makes the spectacle that much better with comp, when you see things.
Yeah, suspense is like half the point of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just challenge you on a couple of points, because I think the listeners will maybe pick up a couple of things straight away.
Sure, yeah.
Like I agree with you to some degree. Then another part of me, because it's certainly a noble pursuit to say, hey, let's take out the juggernauts and let's let the other up and comers have their moment in the spotlight, or maybe even make the playing field a little bit more even. Maybe we're more likely to get balanced or evenly matched teams if we do, limit some of those top teams. There's probably a couple of other negatives to that limitation. The first one being that if I'm a really top team, if I'm outside the top 4 but if I'm within the top 12, say it's a Phoenix Legion or a Majestic 12 like we saw in ISC, I actually probably need to be going up against those top 4 teams to be getting challenged. And the way that I get better, one of the key ways that I get better as a team, is to test myself against one of those top 4 teams in a tournament environment. So, of course, yeah, it may be a case that you are restricting, or you're not helping Phoenix Legion or Majestic 12 or some of these other top teams, RJF, from getting better because they're not getting the chance to go up against EMP or Eon in that setting. Is that something? How do you find the trade-off there? Are we just going to swap a group of one set of top teams for another group of top teams? Do we now see Majestic, Phoenix Legion, RJF, those top teams, maybe even 228 Death from Above, or some of the top 228 teams in that kind of Div B level, for lack of a better word? Do we just see them come in and start wiping the floor with other teams the way that EMP and JGX and Eon would come in and wipe the floor?
We certainly could. There's a lot more of them, though. There's like you said, the top 4 teams are gone, so now what is the rest of the top 12 going to do? Well, that's 8 of them, and we get to see them beat up on each other, and that's twice as many teams. We just wanted some variety for the first run of this tournament. It does specifically denote in the rules that that is only for the first run, and we do plan on running this again in the near future and allowing those teams to compete. We just really wanted an experience that we could look at every single game as a piece of data. We didn't want to look at this as, oh yeah, we already know how that outcome. We already knew that outcome. Like we don't need to exclude these. This is a tournament where our target audience, our target demographic, is those other 8 teams, the other 24 teams in the top 36 that I believe got some amount of prizes in worlds in the comp queue, for example. Those are the people that we're building the tournament for. We're not every single competition in Mechwarrior Online is designed for 4 dozen people. It's designed for hundreds of people. CompQ had a plethora of teams, some of which we had never seen before, all compete against each other. And that's what CompQ is for. CompQ is for all those people, not just the top handful. So we wanted to give people an opportunity to see those other teams and see that they put in just as much work. And when we make changes to this tournament and redo it, allowing those teams to come back in and compete again, we really want it to be polished. We want something refined. G2A's never hosted something like this before, so we're taking this as an opportunity to compile a data set that we can directly compare changes to. And to do that, I felt that it was best that we didn't have the top teams there.
I love the sentiment, and more than anything else, I love the thought that you guys have put into it, because this approach is saying how can we benefit the comp scene as a whole rather than individual teams or even the tournament itself. And I think one of the things that further supports what you're trying to do is that this isn't the only tournament. You know, what is very much trying to happen is to get a league together, a group of tournaments that all contribute to a singular outcome. And it's good to have tournaments that maybe do different things. I mean, we do need to remember that, you know, EMP, Eon, Blackwatch, JGX, they may want to break. They may want to take a tournament off and, you know, develop stuff and, you know, they may not want to just come in and play every tournament and dominate. So to have a tournament that is aimed at achieving those things that you were saying, so trying to spread the field a little bit, trying to probably encourage other teams to take part because they know they're not just going to get stomped by EMP or have that unlucky first round against a top 4 team. I think that's really good. And as I said, if this was the only tournament before Worlds, it might be a problem. But the Grand Prix, of course, is one of hopefully many tournaments in a league that's contributing to the greater goal of a comp scene in general for MWO, and of course for the ultimate prize, which is Worlds. So yeah, really cool what you guys are doing and the thought that you've put into what this tournament is going to do.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to say that I know that is a key discussion point that I've seen a lot, like in the MWO Comp Discord, which has exploded in popularity. A lot of people have said in there that, okay, you've taken away these top teams now. Now, where is our final boss of the tournament? And while there will be a new final boss, we don't know who it is. I think it's good that we can question who it is. Like the fact that we can sit down here and be like, will there just be a new set of final bosses, or won't there be? I think adds a lot of suspense. And these teams can also, like, I don't know about the other 3 teams, but Blackwatch rarely ever turns down the opportunity for a scrim. If a team were to contact us and be like, hey, we know you're not playing in the GP, but we want to practice for the GP, we want to win the GP, come, you know, get beaten up on by us for an entire evening to help us practice, we'd be like, hell yeah, man, like, let's do it. We love playing Mechwarrior. Like, that's what it's about. It's about the game. So it doesn't, anybody can get a scrim with anybody. And while these teams are out of the tournament, I think adding the suspense and the castability from just giving those teams a breather for the time being, I think adds a lot to the tournament. It does take some away. Every risky decision has positive and negative points to it. But just for this one run, we wanted to see what would happen if they weren't there.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and as I said, it's very commendable that you guys have taken that risk. And I think it'll be great. It's the worst thing that would happen is that you look back and say, hey, maybe that's something we would change moving forward. But what you'll learn from it, and of course the best case scenario, is that you do have a tournament that is contributing more to the comp scene than it would if those top 4 teams were in there. So well done, Ben. It's great that you guys have decided to opt for something, and we obviously will be able to talk about it afterwards and see how it's gone.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a nice segue really into the next point that I wanted to talk about, and we have touched on this, I think, pretty heavily, so we don't need to talk too much about it. But the Grand Prix obviously is pretty much the third tournament from under the new guys of MWO Comp, and we have seen 2 different tournaments leading into this, MOR, the Martial Olympiad Reborn, and the Inner Sphere Coalition for the Grand Prix, and hopefully you guys are hoping to make it something regular that we see and that crops up. I mean, how do you see it placed within the competitive scene? You've already talked about some of the things that you're hoping that it achieves, with some of the limitations and the changes in the drop deck format and some of the structures. But how do you see it fitting in 2 aspects? Firstly, in this kind of league that's trying to be built, and secondly, in regards to Worlds. So how do you think that it contributes to MWO Comp, and how do you think it contributes to what we will hopefully have as a really awesome player-run World Champs near the end of the year?
So I think one of the key messages, one of the themes I would hope that someone would be able to take away from this is that there can be creative solutions that you can test to solve problems. I know that previous World Championships have had some bumps here and there, and they've had some really nice points too. And there's people talk nonstop. Like January, February is mostly just debate of, what could a PGI have done different? And it's not really about they can't just. They're not seers. They can't see into the future and automatically know, okay, we had to make this exact change and everything will be perfect now. It's just coming up with creative solutions. We just want people to see that there are ideas that you can come up with. You can just throw things at the wall and see if they stick. See if does this work? This is a creative idea? We think it'll be fun. Will it work? Tonnage penalties for duplicate mechs and random maps and stuff like that. Kind of trying to solve some of the previous issues of like last year's Worlds of everyone just banned the same 3 or 4 maps over and over again. Everyone took the same mechs. How do we solve that? What's a creative and fun way for both players and viewers to fix these problems? And I think if anyone were to take one thing, like if this tournament were to crash and burn and not get run again, that would be the one thing I would want people to take away from it, is that we were trying to find creative solutions to common problems.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. And truth be told, it's going to be greatly needed as we move into this first iteration, hopefully first of many, of a player-run World Champs. Whoever becomes the organising committee or whoever's sitting down to organise the format of the World Champs, they're going to need these tournaments to look back on. And if every tournament is the same, it's potentially going to limit, as you say, the creativity that they can apply. But instead, they might be able to look at a tournament like this, and whether it be the map selection process that you've looked at, or the duplicate process and the tonnage penalties, there are these kind of unique ideas that they can look at. And so, do you see Grand Prix moving forward? Let's say you were to do another one in a year or 6 months. Again, it would be a vehicle where you could try out innovative and creative structures. Is that how you really see the Grand Prix?
Yeah. I think it's an excellent platform for seeing how different creative changes affect the rest of the competitive scene. I mean, that's what this Grand Prix was about, is solving problems that we saw in the past. And then when it comes to next year's Worlds, if there's really creative changes that they make, we'll of course try to integrate them. If there's creative changes that they thought about making or other people think about making, then we can try to integrate those into our tournament and see how they run. I think it's an excellent vehicle for that. It's short, it's quick, it should hopefully be fun to cast and fun to watch. and it's something that, because of how short it is, we can really just run it in whatever competitive downtime there is. If comp queue's down for a weekend or two, welcome to 228 Winter GP. It.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fantastic, man. And I guess the other thing I'd add to that is that it's not top heavy, and that may actually give you the opportunity to try some things and not have those super good teams exploit it immediately. Maybe you do get to test things a little bit by not putting it in the hands of those pure mech savants, that you find in those top 4 teams. It's awesome, man, and I love, again, your approach, as I've said, the amount of thought that you guys have put into it and the care. I guess that leads me to my last question around what we might see from the Grand Prix and the play. Do you have any predictions? I mean, obviously you guys aren't putting in a team, so you can give me the hints and tips, and the listeners the hints and tips for what metas might we see for a 360 ton limit, for some duplicates. You mentioned maybe Mad Cats, but we've seen IS medium pulse builds and the Vulcan kind of rise. We've seen Vapor Eagle ATM builds, that are just prevalent in solo queue. Do you think that there's going to be some metas that we see that are unique to Grand Prix, or will it just be the same kind of AC2, IS medium pulse?
I think we'll see something a little bit different. I think it'll be. I think one could compare it to ISC and find some similarities. Our average tonnage per mech is higher, but not wildly higher. And the deck construction could work out the same. You could bring all medium mechs if you wanted to with the triple duplicates. It's not that far out of it's perfectly reasonable. But with the addition of clan mechs, with things like ATMs that can deal like 81 damage if you get at the exact right range to another mech in one volley, like, will medium pulse laser mechs still be viable? Like the Uziel, I don't even think the Uziel has 81 CT armor. So if you just face this wall of ATM, will medium pulse lasers stand up? But if the medium pulse lasers do stand up to that and they get within close range, will teams be able to coordinate enough to scatter perfectly evenly so that 5 of their 6 ATM mechs still function? Like, these are all some questions that we'll have to see the cast to figure out. I think the fact that you can question something like this so much, like, I know I keep saying that, but the fact that you can question these things so much means that I think there will probably be a diverse spread of things happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And with MOR, we did tend to see, typically brawl, fast brawl for domination. So it will be interesting to see whether the meta stays in that type of strat. But there was a bit of cap and control. I say cap and control, I probably went with domination more Overwatch. So there was a bit of Overwatch strats in domination, particularly on Grim. We would see that in MOR, that there was quite a bit of Overwatch that was being used there. So yeah, it will be really interesting, and given that it is pretty brawl heavy, it will be interesting to see the kind of IS versus clan balance at that tonnage limit. So, things that'll be really interesting as we prep towards Worlds to see what kind of decks people are putting together when it is domination, when you have that 360 limit, and when you do have this kind of duplicate system. That means that you can take a far wider range of potential drop decks than the other tournaments that we've seen.
Personally, I tend to favor ATMs right now. I know they just took a little bit of a hit in the most recent patch, and that's unfortunate. I think they're really fun to play. But I think ATMs will have a huge impact here. We just came out of a tournament that's IS only, and people haven't been playing with them in a while, and I think reintroducing them, reminding people just how devastating something like that could be, like ultra autocannon builds, could be like something like, just spitballing here, like double Mad Cat, Huntsman, Vapor Eagle. That's probably like the most DPS you can have with 2 assaults and 2 medium mechs in the game right now, or at least if not DPS, burst DPS, right? Like, just having those mechs around a corner will vaporize something. So it'll be interesting to see how people with these IS medium pulse decks fresh on their mind coming out of that tournament, coming into this one, I think we will see quite a bit of med pulse. I think we'll see quite a bit of rush decks, a lot of high mobility in your face stuff. But I think there will be counters. I think you can bring a decent bit of chunky battle mechs and try and stop that.
Yeah. Personally, I think we'll probably see the linebackers, the Vulcans, and the Assassins. I think they'll probably dominate those first two drops.
Oh yeah, that was a pretty
Yeah.
deadly combination.
Yeah, very common in MOR. So it will be interesting. Obviously, the tonnage penalty that you have to pay in domination for an assault will be interesting. So for stuff like Mad Cats, it will be interesting to see whether fast brawl and mobility do trump the high burst alpha that you do get from clans. And there's always a risk if you're taking ATMs, because as soon as you've got that mid range, then you're toast. And you probably may see one or two ATM mechs carried here and there in a deck, just to supplement and be able to kind of hide behind some heavier tonnage or something to get it. But I'm sure we will see a ton of Assassins, Vulcans, linebackers, and of course those favourites, the Piranhas, I think will be pretty common. So yeah, looking forward to seeing those mech savants out there put together their drop decks and see how it goes.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I really do.
So, I very much want to get involved. Oblivion, can you talk me a little bit through the process of getting a team together and registering for the tournament?
Oh, that's great. So, to do that, we've been advertising a lot on MWO Comp on Discord. We've also been piecing together our own Discord that will be made public shortly. There will be Reddit posts going up, things on MWO. A lot of our casters, Defunct Pickle, have been advertising it on their streams. There's a lot of the word out there. There's a challenge page. You can find it on MWO Comp. We have our own Discord chat section in their Discord. It's one of the pinned posts. You just go on challenge, type in your team name, hit register, you're good to go.
And of course, we will leave the links to the MWO Discord and those other key websites. So check the show notes if you are not already with that. But yeah, of course, MWO Discord, MWO Comp Discord is a great place to start. So how long have I got, Oblivion? And how many team members and pilot members do I need in putting a team together?
You have until there will be an exhibition game between us and EMP Thursday evening, the day before the tournament, and at midnight Eastern Standard Time after that tournament is when I will be cutting off registration. So you have until the night before the tournament. Not really till midnight. You have until I fall asleep, really, to register. So probably like 3 a.m.
Okay, and what was the date on that one, Oblivion?
That was Thursday, Thursday, July 11th at midnight Eastern Standard Time.
Awesome. So by the time you are listening to that, there will be just a few days. So make sure that you do get registered so that you can participate. Any limitations around the number of pilots and stuff like that?
So yes, there's a team roster cap of 10 pilots. There was previously, we made it so that you had to register your whole 10 pilot team on Challenge. There were some issues with the UI on Challenge, so at this point it's just register your team for now, and then when the tournament actually starts, you'll be submitting your final roster to me.
Fantastic.
Directly.
And as I said, guys, the links to all of these places will be in the show notes, so head along to there. But yeah, of course, using MWO Discord, MWO Comp Discord as a launching point is really good. There are rules that you can access that go over all of these things that Oblivion has detailed, so that you can just check exactly what we have said. So let's say I win. What are we looking at prices wise? Oblivion, have PGI come to the table on this one?
So it hasn't fallen on me. Another part of 228 has been contacting PGI in terms of prizes. We're putting together a list, I believe, and we'll be sending it to them shortly. We're going to be asking for something nice and juicy. We're thinking like mech packs, MC prizes, and you can definitely expect plenty of reward codes and prizes being given out in the streams for the tournament as well.
Fantastic. And I mean, that's the best thing about this comp scene, is that you can get rewarded for playing and participating, but of course you can also get rewarded just for supporting it by watching the streams and stuff like that. And we have seen PGI be very, very generous thus far to MWO Comp. They were fantastic support of MOR and some great support of the Innisphere Coalition as well. So no doubt that they will come to the table and help out for those teams. Are the prizes limited to just the top 4 Oblivion, or how does that work?
We're thinking that we'll probably be looking at giving all of the finalists, so all the people that make it to week 2 will most likely be receiving prizes. Again, nothing set in stone, but that's the most likely outcome, that the teams that survive the cut to finals will be getting prizes.
Fantastic. And of course, keep an eye on those channels that we talked about, guys. The 228 Discord, MWO Comp Discord, because no doubt those things will be detailed there. So the last thing that I wanted to cover, of course, is the coverage. You did mention that 228 are going to be the production and organisation team, that we will expect some streamers that we know the names of. Where do I tune in? And, is it multiple channels or is it Twitch? How do I get my eyeballs on this tournament?
There will be multiple channels on Twitch. We'll be using Twitch as our primary platform for casting this. We'll be using the MWO Comp Discord for our feature match for each round. You'll be seeing Nita Pickle, you'll be seeing Defunct, you'll be seeing a bunch of 228 names that hopefully you're familiar with if you watch a lot of competitive Mechwarrior and a lot of casual Mechwarrior streams as well.
Fantastic, and I'm sure most of the listeners do, but if you don't, go to Twitch now and obviously search out those streamer names and hit the follow so that you don't miss out. And once again, of course, I'm sure these things will be detailed via those communication channels, via Discord, so that you can see when they are up to be streamed. And of course, one of the benefits, I guess, Oblivion, of running the kind of 1 or 2 weekend events is that you can watch it all in a chunk. You don't have to worry too much about scheduling or anything like that. You can just park up in front of the computer or the TV and watch the action for the day. Yeah,
it should be nice. It should be a really fun thing to just chill out on the weekend and watch some games get pounded out by some really, really exciting teams.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm very much looking forward to the commentary and the coverage in particular. So yeah, I really like that you guys are handling that side of it and really bringing that 228 flavour to the entirety, not just the way that you've organised it, but to have the team members cast and provide some of the commentary is going to be really, really good. So is there anything else that you wanted to talk to the listeners about Oblivion, about the tournament? Obviously, we would encourage everyone to get involved, to go along to those channels that we've already mentioned to register yourself. But is there anything else that you wanted to cover before we wrapped up?
Yeah, of course, as many as we need as many teams as we can get. The more people we have, the better the competitive scene of Mechwarrior just in general gets. It's really fun to just come out for a weekend and beat the crap out of some battle mechs. That's what the game's all about, right? Just stompy robots, just punch each other in the face, shooting lasers everywhere. It's good fun. It's what it's about. And we would love to see as many people as we can come out and play and see a diverse pool of mechs get fielded. It's going to be a cool weekend. I hope everyone has fun.
Absolutely. And of course, if you are not part of a team, you can also go to those Discord channels and register your interest to get together. As we saw with ISC, we had a ton of unique groups, teams that have played together for the first time. So it's not just about established units putting teams in. You can just get 6 to 10 of your friends or even people that you don't know together to participate. I'm sure, Oblivion, you would agree when I'd say that comp is a whole other game mode itself. It brings a level of intensity and satisfaction like you will have never had playing the game. So it is well worth putting your name in the hat and giving it a go. And for something so fun, why not?
Yeah. Competitive Mechwarrior is a whole nother beast. It's nothing like public queue, solo queue, faction play. It's an entirely different feeling, and it's like solid adrenaline sometimes. It's brilliant.
Absolutely. And the more it is supported, the more we have tournaments like this, the more... the bigger, the wider the door is to get into comp. So don't think that you need to be as good as Oblivion to make your way in or to be EMP level to get into comp. It is for all levels. And by and large, in most of the tournaments, you will end up playing teams of an equal level. So don't think that skill is a barrier. I mean, I am a good example of that. I'm not very good at the game, but I still play comp. So and I do it because I enjoy it. So you make sure you participate. All right, Oblivion, thanks so much for talking today. Great to hear about the MWO Summer Grand Prix. For all our listeners, get out there, register, and show your support either through playing or, of course, by watching. So, we'll...
Great to talk to you about it. Thanks so much.
Hey, awesome. All right, guys, we'll catch you next time. If you did enjoy this content, then please consider supporting us. You can do this in a multitude of ways, including subscribing to our podcast on your favourite podcast platform and leaving reviews, as well as subscribing to us on YouTube and liking our videos. You can also support us by sending us feedback either through comments, tweets, or directly through email. Tweet and follow us on Twitter at incomingp, or email us directly at incomingmissilepodcast@gmail.com. You can also support us directly by becoming a patron or sponsor. You can find us on Patreon at Incoming Missile Podcast and choose one of 3 tiers of support. Patrons not only get mentioned on the podcast and get access to exclusive content, but can even join us as a guest host on the podcast. You can also opt to sponsor an episode through one-off donations, all of which will be used as giveaways for our listeners. So if you had a product, service, or content that you'd like us to mention, contact us to discuss sponsoring an episode. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We look forward to hearing from you. We appreciate you listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Shutdown sequence initiated.